This is BS with Joe. I'm Brad Scott. That's Joe. Today we're going to be talking about what, Joe?
What did I say?
DEI staffers.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, the Trump's attack on DEI.
Yes.
Which, in case anybody doesn't know, DEI stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and it is anything but.
Yes. It divides individuals into categories, and I believe individuals should not be divided.
Under the DEI policies, companies have been using it as like a quota and saying they have to have X number of female, X number of black, X number of Hispanic, X number of American Indians, or even if you've got 100 applications in front of you, and they will start looking at the race and even gender, and even for that matter,
Sexual orientation.
In the hiring process, which I'm sorry, but that's illegal. It's already illegal. So how did DEI even get started is my question.
Well, if it's
because it's illegal to begin with.
Right, but if it's the government believed that it had more power than the law. And in that aspect too, if you look at some of the states that are going against SCOTUS decisions on Bruin, they're still enforcing unconstitutional gun laws. All gun laws are unconstitutional in my eyes, but
What was that? There was a Supreme Court ruling a while ago. Trying to remember exactly what it was, but
Chevron difference.
No, this is before that. It had to do with the Second Amendment, and it was
Okay. Bruin?
I think it was Bruin.
Bruin decision. So yeah, the Bruin decision. It's basically saying that
Basically, it made every single Second Amendment law unconstitutional.
Unconstitutional. Exactly. And, Martin Luther King wanted everybody to be judged off of their content of their character, not based off their skin color or anything else. DEI is now making it mandatory for you to choose somebody based off of their color of their skin,
Right.
their gender, or their sexual orientation.
Right.
And back before Martin Luther King had his famous I Have a Dream speech, a lot of people chose people based off of their race, their sexual identity, and their preference.
And Martin Luther King and Malcolm X both, in their struggles, did a lot to bring the laws into effect that we have now, where you cannot, it's against the law in the hiring process to consider race, religion, gender, sexual orientation is a newer addition to that because of today's times, but those are all things that you cannot consider in the hiring process. It's illegal.
It's illegal.
But yet they did it.
And
So Trump has like 160 employees, I think, across different government entities, have basically just given walking papers because their job title was DEI.
Yes. And the government even tried to hide some of the DEI members into different roles.
There was that woman that worked with the DEF, or the
ATF.
The ATF. They just changed her position.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sleuths like Doge brought that out. And those individuals, if they're not doing what they were there designed for and they change their titles, they're still doing what they're doing.
Right.
It's just under a different title.
Yeah, they're still doing the same job, which between saying that DEI programs all have to immediately stop, which he did, that was a presidential order, and all of the people that were in positions to promote DEI no longer have a job, which I'm totally cool with because it was evil to begin with. And then also saying that as of I think this past Friday, all pronouns had to be removed from any government emails.
Yeah, because it's a form of identification to diversify.
Exactly.
Or not diversify, but exclude someone from being a part of.
Yep.
And I believe in complete inclusion. I think if you're a certain position, it doesn't matter what you are, you should be included for it because that's who you are, that's what you do.
Exactly.
And that goes back to judging a person based off their character, not off of anything of what they look like or what bathroom they use.
Right. And critical race theory are along the same path.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're teaching the school kids, is that 2 + 2 = 5.
Yes. And they're teaching them that if you're of this race, you're either oppressive or you're oppressed.
Yeah. And back to Morgan Freeman, because I totally agree with what he said, is the easiest way to stop racism is to stop talking about it.
And you wouldn't have individuals like Thomas Sowell even talking about any of the things he ever talks about if DEI was there when he was around.
Right.
And he's still around. But you know, I'm looking at all these individuals that predates DEI, and they say he would have never been in that position or allowed in that position because of his race. But we fought against that in the 60s that allowed Thomas Sowell to be in the position he's in.
Exactly.
To allow one of the best Supreme Court justices, Clarence Thomas.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is, as a nation, we were moving in the right direction toward the end of racism.
Yes.
And then CRT and DEI came out. And it set us 20 years back.
It set us 20 years back. And what it's going to do is, if it was allowed to continue, it would create a lot of animosity to other races and other sexual orientations.
When it comes down to it, just hire the person that is qualified for the position.
Judge somebody based off their character.
Yeah.
If that character says, I could do this position better than anyone else, and they could prove that they do that position better than anyone else, they're the best qualified for that position.
There's your candidate. I don't care what color they are. I don't care what they do in their bedroom. It doesn't matter.
If they could do it better than anyone else,
Don't do it.
then they're going to do it.
Yep.
I don't believe somebody should be given a participation trophy just because.
I agree.
I want to go on to another subject, and this may be a trigger for some, but I also believe that individuals, especially young individuals, are having identity crises when they believe they're another gender as a child. So if you're born a male and you believe you're a female at a young age, you're going through an identity crisis. Now, that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that that makes them mentally ill or deficient. I think that's a part of growing up.
When I was a kid, they were called tomboys.
Yes.
And everybody said they'll grow out of it. I had one of my sisters was a tomboy.
And there's nothing wrong with being a tomboy.
Nothing.
Some tomboys still are women, and they are heterosexual.
Yeah.
They just
My
like...
sister was a tomboy until she hit puberty, and she was like, "Oh, I'm a woman."
Yeah. Well, there's some women that never grow out of the whole tomboy. They love the woods, they love the hunt, and they like guys too.
Yeah.
So they're not.
Yeah. And
You know.
there are toddler and young boys that will play dress up with their sisters. There's nothing wrong with it, but
No.
that doesn't mean that they want to change their gender.
Right.
Because kids that age don't think sexually unless they're being groomed to think that way.
Exactly. And I think that that's a lot of, trying to discover who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And at a young age, when you start to decide, oh, you should be a boy, when you're a woman and given puberty blockers
Right.
at a young age when they don't even know who they are yet.
Right.
You're ruining them for becoming an adult.
Because I'll tell you what, I mean, I remember going through puberty, and it was a very confusing time.
Mm-hmm.
And there are all kinds of identity struggles that happen during that time period.
Mm-hmm.
All kinds of them. And everybody goes through it differently.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have an adult in your life that has an agenda, you got a problem.
That goes back to the whole thing we've been talking about forever. Evil things have evil consequences.
Right.
If you do good things, you're going to be prosperous, I believe.
I'm sorry that you wanted a daughter,
Yeah.
but you have a son, so live with it. Be thankful for what you've been given.
Not only that, but
And let them choose.
Let them choose. Allow that individual mold to become their own person.
Right.
I think a lot of parents
Live vicariously.
live very vicariously through their children, and that's okay. I'm not saying that's bad,
No.
but
It sometimes can get to the point where it's bad.
yes. I mean, because I understand parents will live vicariously through their children.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's somewhat healthy because you see yourself in your child, which can be a good thing.
Right. But pushing them to be the figure skater that they were never meant to be.
Yes, is going to create animosity.
Yeah.
They may never want to interact with you as an adult.
Right.
You'll never see your kids again after that.
Let your kid find out who your kids are.
Find out
Let
who
them
your kids
find
are.
out who they are.
Let
I mean,
them.
I fully understand that, yes, if you're going to be a professional athlete, you need to start working on it at a very young age because otherwise you're just not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Did Peyton Manning and Archie Manning and Eli Manning have a choice? No, probably not.
No.
But it was in their DNA.
It was in their
And
DNA.
it was their family, it was the way they were brought up.
Mm-hmm.
Is it wrong? No, I don't think so. I think that their identities matched what was happening. But if you take a situation where, let's say, Peyton Manning has a son that really wants to just be a bookworm and doesn't really want to play sports, and he's forcing him to do that,
Yes.
that's when you have a problem.
That's when you have a problem. And I think we're kind of getting into the weeds of this.
Yeah.
But with a lot of that, it's you gotta let kids be kids. I think parenting has changed a lot through the generations. Like you look at Gen X, they were latchkey kids. Parents weren't really in their lives a lot. They were too busy working and trying to provide for them.
We were the generation where they actually had to put a commercial on television at 9 o'clock at night saying, "Parents, do you know where your children are?" Because they didn't.
Right. And then we went to helicopter parents, and now we're full on dictator parents.
Yeah.
In some cases.
I mean, even the boomers had freedom.
Yeah.
Not as much as Gen X, but
Yeah. I mean, and you're right, you'd still want to protect your kids, and I think nowadays there's so many more predators out there in so many different areas.
Mm-hmm.
Before, you just had to make sure they didn't get in a van with another person
Right.
that you didn't know.
And nowadays, Johnny could be going to the pool with his friend and their dad, and they come home buggered.
Not only that, but you got the internet, you got social media, and
Right.
parents have a very hard time understanding what they're getting into in that.
Kids are exposed to a lot of things at a much earlier age than we were exposed to.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm Gen X, so when I was a kid, there was no gender, there was no sex. It didn't exist until I was probably 10.
Yeah.
It was just, okay, I'm a boy, I'm doing boy things, but what does that really even mean?
Right.
It's the clothes I wear. It's the things I do.
Right.
That was it.
That was it. And another thing too is like Apple, or not Apple, I'm sorry, YouTube videos. YouTube videos, you used to put it on an algorithm like play Spider-Man videos.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see Spider-Man videos. There was this form of content that creators created that was very adult, that would have the Frozen Princess and Spider-Man on there, and they'd be wearing Spider-Man costumes and princess costumes, doing very adult activities on YouTube at one point.
You ever heard of Spidey Pool?
I think that's what it was.
Where Spider-Man and Deadpool have a gay relationship?
I think some of that was that.
Yeah.
And they would do things like that, and the kids would start watching this, and the parents wouldn't even have a clue what they're watching.
No, they're just watching superhero video again.
Yeah, and because of the way the YouTube algorithm was set up, that's what would happen.
I think that's been fixed.
It's been fixed.
Yeah.
But you know, it's out there, and I understand why parents want to be more helicopter and more dictator parents kind of things.
Yeah.
And yet there's so much things that could get kids in trouble nowadays. And
it's not just the kids being exposed to all these things. It's when we were kids, if you got into a fight in the playground, you know, you might get suspended for a couple days from school. You'd have to deal with mom and dad when you got home. Nowadays, they have to deal with the police.
yes. Not only that, but if your parents moved to another city or state, you had to get whole new friends.
Yeah.
Now with Facebook and social media, you could still keep those friends.
That's true.
And
Heck, they moved two cities over, you lost that friend.
yeah. And now also with videos, if your kid gets into a fight, gets beat up, he could become a meme.
Yep.
Whereas before, a year later, everybody would forget about it.
Like the one skeleton kid. I like turtles.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's been on the internet for 20 years saying I like turtles, and it's still
Yeah, it's still there.
it's still there.
But, you know, and it's scary being a parent nowadays.
Yep.
Is there anything more you want to add to DEI? I think we kind of went off.
We did.
Subject.
And I'm kind of wondering how I'm going to label this one.
Yeah. DEI parenting.
DEI/parenting?
Yeah. We went into the weeds.
Yeah, we did.
When you go into the weeds with DEI, and that's essentially what it is.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because we kind of went full circle on how the evolution of DEI probably came about.
Yeah.
You know, it came about because of
Overprotectiveness?
overprotectiveness. And then now we want to protect people who don't really even need protection.
Yeah.
And that's where DEI, I think, came from.
It's a mindset, and I think it started back when the government decided that we needed to wear seatbelts,
Yeah,
which I am completely against.
Yeah.
Not because they're not a safety feature; they're a safety feature. But as an American, you have the right to choose.
Whether or not you want to be safe or not.
Yeah.
We actually have the right to choose to drive safely or not.
Yeah.
You can
Well,
choose to drive without a
There will be
driving license.
consequences if you choose to drive unsafely, but same thing with the seatbelt. If you choose not to wear a seatbelt, yeah, you're going to have consequences, but it shouldn't be a ticket.
Shouldn't be a ticket. You're right.
Because I didn't sign up for my government to be my parent.
No. And that's also why the government still wants your driving rights to be a privilege and not a right.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that freedom of travel should be a right and not a privilege.
There is an argument for that.
There is an argument for that. But there again, it's we the people against the government. Do good things and be rewarded.
We the people are supposed to be the government.
Right. Not be governed by the government.
Right.
I'm
all for a smaller government.
Yes. But do good things, work hard.
And like, share, and subscribe.
Yeah, like, share, and subscribe.
Yes, that too.
Yes.